PVE Scav raids are almost entirely pointless in my opinion, but I'm interested to see what your guys' thoughts are, but I'm going to detail why, because that's important to this video, and of course trying to progress your account. If you are doing a lot of scav raids, this is why you may want to or may not want to. Before we get into the crux of this video, make sure to like it if you do enjoy Escape from Tarkov PVE and you want to see more content like this one. And of course, let's jump in. But there are some outsider cases which do make scav runs actually have a point within the PVE mode, and we'll get into those as well. But let's cover some of the key topics that I think everyone needs to know about PVE and why it's even worse to do scav runs on a PVE account as opposed to just a normal PvP account. So let's cover up some of the key bases of why scav runs are not particularly the best for you, and that is that you can't save loot if you get taken out. If you were taken out by a group of PMCs within the game, or the boss, or maybe you accidentally fall off a cliff or something, well, you don't get anything. And so everything that was on your scav is gone, your time is completely wasted, which is of course not what you want when the whole premise of going on a scav is to get gear and loot and be able to extract with more value than what you went into, which is nothing, and therefore make money every single time. But on PvE, the problem is that you get less inventory space than a PMC, which means you don't guarantee a backpack. It's not all of the time. Sometimes you could get a really good backpack with a ton of slots and a really good rig at the same time, which gives you a ton of slots. But the problem is, on average, you get significantly less space to be able to run around in your raids. Yes, you can go ahead and take out some PMCs, or maybe find some other kind of AI that's in the game that has a big backpack that you can take off of the ground, but the actual likelihood of that is pretty low. And even when you do take out that AI, or maybe you find it, you are going to find that it's often not the best backpack, and you aren't going to be able to get that much loot anyway. So it really is a case of, like, if you're going to run a raid, you want to be able to have the ability to actually pick up as much loot as possible if you are going for loot, and that isn't actually very possible on a scav. Now, moving on from that, you also don't get the best gear. So in terms of actually going through the raid, like I said, you can't save anything if you do get taken out. But in addition to this, because of the fact that your gear on a scav is going to be significantly worse than when you're playing on your PMC, or I would hope so, that means that you're essentially going to have a higher chance of being taken out when you do meet an opponent that is aggressive to you, which obviously when you're running around with level 2 plates, or sometimes you don't even get armor on a scav, you can get basically beamed right out of the game, and you have wasted your entire time throughout the entire of the game. On bigger maps, sometimes you don't spawn near the scav extracts, and so you've got to run a ton of time, and you never know that you're going to come into a boss if you haven't got 6 scav rep, which is also a thing. If you have 6 fence rep, I should call it actually, you don't get aggroed by bosses other than maybe the goons, but obviously you get aggroed on by the goons on every single one, but they're going to be significantly harder to take out on a scav versus a actual PMC with decent ammunition or whatever, or gear or weapons or whatever it is. Essentially, the scav just doesn't have the functionality that you will have on a PMC, and you can't stick stuff up your backside that is going to guarantee you money every single raid, even if you do get taken out. Which, yes, you do have to fight scavs when you're on your PMC, but they're not too typically that bad within the PvE mode, provided that you've played a little bit and, you know, you get used to how the interactions are with the scavs. It really isn't too bad, and often they can just bring you loot, essentially, and when you take them out, you get the loot that the scavs have picked up, and sometimes it can be pretty good, as well as having potentially marked room keys and everything in between actually on the scavs that you take out. You can't do that on an actual scav run, because if you take out a scav, you lose scav rep and a lot of it, and then every single scav that you ever meet in that raid will essentially be very angry at you, and they'll come after you and follow you around for the entire game, which means that if you take out one, you're going to have to probably take out another, unless you just let yourself get taken out yourself. And at that point, you know, what was the point in doing the raid? What was the point in losing the karma? Well, nothing, because you've essentially not got any money, you've wasted time, and you've lost scav rep, which means you're going to have to do another load of scav runs to get that same PMC or scav karma that you previously had. And so when it comes to PvE, is you get all of that, you know, normal stuff that happens with regards to scavs versus PMCs, but you also have the problem that on PvE, the insurance pretty much comes back the entire time. You will always pretty much get all of your gear back in insurance. And yes, there's a cost to insuring your gear, but relative to how good that gear is and actually how often you can survive more likely than your actual scav, you are going to be able to make your money back with the bigger backpacks, with the better gear, with the ability to tank shots to the face sometimes with some of the better armors from a shotgun scav, for example. It is much safer playing on a PMC when you do come into contact with some of the other people. Obviously, if you are 6 scav rep, then you don't have to come up against bosses, which is fine, and they're kind of guards or associated AI that are with them. They won't be aggressive to you at 6 scav rep, and so yes, in that regard, perfectly fine, but the whole point of doing a scav is to get to 6 scav rep, at which point you unlock all of the brilliant fence rep kind of bonuses that you actually have. We have a video on the fence rep bonuses and so why they are amazing on PvE and why you want to actually get to 6 scav rep. And that is also another thing, is that often people will try to do scav runs to be able to get their scav rep up, but on PvE, the problem is you don't get scav rep if you do take out a PMC. There is only a scav rep for every raid complete. So if you survive that raid, you get a scav rep point, or at least 0.01 rep for that raid. Which means for every 1 scav rep in total, you are going to need 100 raids. And obviously if you're starting from 0, which I'm sure a lot of people aren't, as there are bonuses with different packages of the game, or maybe you've done a car extract here and there, it is still going to take you an absolute ton of time. And often it is better to run a PMC doing car extracts for almost like 4 rep in total over the course of all of the different maps than it would be to run, you know, 400 different scav raids in a row. Of course, you have to wait between the timer as well, which makes it even worse. And if you haven't fully upgraded your hideout to have Intel Center level 3, which reduces the scav cooldown timer massively, then it feels like an age to actually get to 6 scav rep, at which it would just be much faster, much more profitable, and much safer running on a PMC. And of course, the other thing that comes with this is that you are going to be leveling up your scav, and you are not going to be leveling up your PMC. And what I mean by that is that you could spend 400 raids leveling up your scav by accident, essentially, because all you're really doing is trying to farm loot or gear or whatever, or complete a task, for example. But the problem is, all of those raids and all of the XP that you got on that isn't going towards the main component of why you're trying to get the money to actually pay for things, and that is that you want your PMC to be better or have better gear or whatever. And of course, leveling up your skills only comes by playing that specific type of character, whether it's a scav or a PMC. And so playing on a scav doesn't give you PMC karma or PMC levels, etc. And therefore you are going to end up severely under-leveling your PMC and over-leveling your scav, and really you just should be playing on your PMC if you really want to actually level up that character, get more loot and get better gear. And yes, there are times and places where running a scav is a good option, in my opinion, which we'll get into now, because there are a couple things that are worth doing as a scav, and I've done certainly quite a few raids as a scav just for fun, and that is that you can actually command scavs based on your scav reputation. The higher the reputation, the more likely a AI scav that is friendly to you will actually command or follow you or move or do the command that you're actually asking them to within the game. You can hit YY really quickly and it will come up with a menu, and you can say follow me, and the scavs will follow you around. The higher the fence rep, the better that is. And of course that can help with kind of bringing in a horde of scavs to come and support you against PMCs or whatever you might want to do just for a bit of fun. And that should be something that should be said it is worth it if you find it fun. And I'm not going to tell you that you have to go and do it, but I'm talking about if you are wanting a breakdown of what is actually good, then that hopefully this video has at least given you some of the things and pointers as to what that is. The other thing is that, yes, okay, scavs are, useful for, of course, having a bit of fun here and there, but they're also very useful for learning maps. If you have never played a map before and you just simply want to get the layout of the map, you can run as a scav. If you're running a map that you well know on your PMC, you can then, once you've either played that raid or you've got taken out and you don't want to gear up your PMC just yet and you want to just go in and learn a new map, then a scav is a brilliant way of doing that because it's no risk. If you get taken out, the value from that raid is not in what you're taking out of the raid, but it's more so the experience that you're getting from that raid as to the map and the spawns and the different types of AI that you will meet within the PVE mode. So I think that it is very, very good for learning certain maps. The ones that I'm really looking at are things like, for example, Streets of Tarkov. It's a very good way to learn that map. And of course, get used to it, get used to the flow of the map, where the PMCs spawn, where the bosses spawn, because if you have a high scav rep, then yes, you're going to be able to not be aggroed by the bosses. But equally, if you're not, you'll learn where you can get targeted by the bosses and taken out of the raid. So it's kind of one of those things where you're learning either way, whatever happens in the raid, whether you get gear or not. And so that's where the PMCs and scav differences really come in with regards to learning the map. Obviously on a PMC you can still do the same thing, it's just you are going to lose more money when you do get taken out, especially as a beginner who hasn't played a map before. Then yeah, of course that's going to happen. And so mitigating that cost and keeping some of the better gear that you do have, if you're a lower level and can't buy it or you're struggling with money, then that is a good way to kind of counterbalance it, playing a scav raid, playing a PMC, scav, PMC, scav, PMC, or just adding them into the mix to learn a new map and playing the ones that you already do know and have tasks on as your PMC. So it's also good because you can loot PMCs. Now PMCs and AI will actually kind of fight together and they'll also work against each other. So PMCs will fight other PMCs, PMCs will fight bosses, PMCs will fight scavs. And if you find an area of the map that is constantly just bombarded with scavs and AI and that sort of stuff, then you can often find just free loot lying around on the floor that you can go ahead and take off of fallen comrades or just enemies that have been taken out by your scav friends, for example. And so with that, I think it is a useful feature. And so, yeah, when it comes to scavs, I think those are the kind of key points that I've found as to whether or not I should actually do it, as well as the fact that the scav run can be really useful for picking up certain items, like for example if you need certain barter items or whatever, then you can use your scav to just run straight to that location, not have to deal with any other scavs or AI that aren't aggressive to you, and then just run in there with a minimal amount of time and then extract straight away, rather than having to fight through a wave of scavs and AI and bosses or whatever as a PMC. If you're just simply wanting to get a quick and easy find and transfer task done that a scav run can actually do and do very well, and that's something that I think should be said as to why you may or may not want to play as a scav. But hopefully that's given you an overview and why I don't really use scav raids within the game. I think it is a waste of time for the majority of it, and often you're going to learn better playing as a PMC, you're going to learn the game better, you're going to have more space, you're going to get more loot, and at the end of the day, the actual cost of you getting taken out as a PMC, if you're playing solo, is basically nothing. It's just the insurance value. And yes, you might lose that value, but you'll make more money in the long run with a bigger backpack, with better gear, and not get taken out anywhere near as much as when you just run scav raids for money. So thank you very much for watching this video. I'm really interested to see what your thoughts are on this, because this is just my opinion, and I'm not going to tell you that you should or shouldn't use scavs. It's up to you, but I really wanted to find out whether you guys do scav runs, why you do it, and why you think you shouldn't do it if you do. So thank you very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe down below if you want to see some more Escape from Tarkov content, and like the video if you do, and I will see you there. Goodbye.